Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and there's a brand new Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank on the battlefield, the KV-4 Kreslavsky. This is a Clan Wars reward tank. It should be hitting the European server today, and I'm going to let you know everything there is to know about this vehicle before it hits the battlefield, or shall I say as it hits the battlefield, so you can avoid things like this happening to you. Stay tuned, I've got gameplay coming right up after I quickly compare the statistics of the brand new KV-4 Kreslavsky to some of its Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank peers. So here we have the KV-4 Kreslavsky compared to the standard KV-4, the standard IS-3, the premium IS-3A, and the Clan Wars reward tank, the IS-5. It's a bit bizarre that we've got yet another Soviet heavy tank as a Clan Wars reward vehicle. So firstly, you might notice that the KV-4 Kreslavsky isn't going to be killing anything quickly with a less than 1,700 DPM. This vehicle has 107mm main armament, the same as the KV-4, but it fires half a round less a minute, and that is significant. But at least the Kreslavsky gets the same awesome penetration as the KV-4 at 227mm, and also I should mention that the KV-4 gets awesome premium ammunition, 289mm of APCR penetration. That is more than enough to get through the front of pretty much everything in the game. And the premium rounds on the Kreslavsky are way better than that on the IS-5, for example, which gets 270mm of heat penetration, that have a very poor velocity of 820 meters per second compared to the Kreslavsky's 1,304. So what about the weapon handling with the Kreslavsky? Well, it has the same 2.9 seconds aim time as the KV-4, which was recently buffed from 3.4 seconds unless I'm mistaken. This is way better than the IS-3, the IS-3A, or even the slightly improved IS-5's aim time. And when we compare the dispersion values, the Kreslavsky actually has better gun dispersion than the standard KV-4, with 0.21 when moving or turning the tank and 0.15 when turning the turret. And this makes you realize just how OP the IS-3 is, with some fantastic turret dispersion, almost negating that horrific 3.4 seconds aim time. The vehicle also has a slight advantage over the standard KV-4, and the Kreslavsky also has better gun dispersion after firing than the standard KV-4, but this shouldn't matter because the rate of fire is so bad anyway. There's more good news for the Kreslavsky when we look at the depression of the tank. It has 7 degrees of gun depression, which due to the shape of the turret and the hull is all around the vehicle, so you don't have to worry about aiming over the back of your tank, for example. So far, good news for the Kreslavsky. How does it compare to the standard KV-4 with regards to its movement? 30 kilometers an hour forwards and 16 backwards. That's actually amazing. That's 5 kilometers an hour faster backwards than the standard KV-4, which should make it much harder for your opponents to flank you and get your side. And the vehicle is also 14 tons lighter than the standard KV-4, which makes its power to weight ratio 13 compared to the standard KV-4's 11.28. But unfortunately, the vehicle has absolutely horrific terrain resistances, 1.4 on hard, 1.5 on medium, and 2.8 on soft. It really does slow this tank down, and it feels like a slug getting around the battlefield. Interestingly enough, the Kreslavsky continues to be slightly better than the standard KV-4, with an improved turret traverse of 24 degrees a second and improved tank traverse of 20 degrees a second. But we should also mention this is still really bad, and it is hard to be able to turn this tank quickly to be able to re-engage your opponents. And when your main weakness is the side of your armor in the Kreslavsky, this isn't a good thing. So considering that the Kreslavsky weighs 14 tons less than the standard KV-4, it's unsurprising that the vehicle does lose armor compared to the slower, heavier variant. It has 180mm on the front of the hull, 125 on the side, and 90 at the rear. This is 25mm less of side armor than the standard KV-4, which makes the side of this tank a lot weaker than the standard KV-4 when you're angling at 45 degrees. If we compare the standard KV-4 angled at 60 degrees, it has over 300mm of protection. If we look at 60 degrees on the Kreslavsky, we are going down to 248. This negates one of my favorite things about the KV-4, and that is the front drive wheel. When you over-angle the tank or make it look like you're over-angling the tank like this, and people want to be able to shoot the front drive wheel to take it off and also damage you, they quite often only track you because you've got 255mm of effective armor. On the Kreslavsky, this goes down to 220, which is much weaker, which means that you have to keep your side armor angled much more, making your lower plate a gigantic weak point. All KV-4 drivers out there will know that your front plate is your worst enemy if you don't angle it. Here we can see it going down to 200mm of effective armor, but again, this makes the side of your armor absolutely incredible. With the Kreslavsky, to get your side armor into a position where it's just as strong, your lower plate and also your mid plate is significantly weaker. The mid midplate on the standard KV-4 is 180 millimeters thick. On the Kreslavsky, it's 140. So if you see these vehicles on the battlefield, don't be afraid to shoot them on the front midplate, as this is an easy penetrating shot, and one of your keys to taking down this seemingly impenetrable behemoth. But there is one feature about the Kreslavsky that I actually quite like, and that is that the gun is off-center. On the standard KV-4, we can see that the 107mm main armament is smack in the middle of the turret. For the Kreslavsky, it is slightly to the left of the tank. And so what this means is that when you're side-scraping this Kreslavsky around a corner like this, you can actually make the armor utterly incredible. When the wall is on the right-hand side of your tank, if you imagine it like this, that means that while the Kreslavsky can still shoot you, your side armor is an auto ricochet and your turret armor is actually very strong indeed. And you even manage to hide this weak point on top of the tank, which is 200mm of effective armor. And so if you can find a position to side scrape in the Kreslavsky like this, you are nearly invincible. But unfortunately, you can't quite do the same around the other corner. As we can see here, if you wanted to side scrape around the other corner and you wanted to hide the mid plate of your vehicle, you're going to have to turn your turret pretty much like this. And to be able to do that, you have a weak point on top of the tank here with 200mm of effective armor. And also now if your opponents have extra high penetration, they can shoot you on the side of your tank and still be able to go through. And so that's just an absolute bizarre feature of the Kreslavsky, that it likes to side scrape around left-hand corners, but it can't side scrape effectively around right-hand corners. This reminds me a lot of the AT-7 when you stick your gun round the corner, but it's effectively on the opposite side of the tank. The standard KV-4 has the second highest hit points of any vehicle at tier 8 after the KV-5 with 1,700. Unfortunately, the Kreslavsky has even less hit points than the IS-5 with 1,500. And losing those 200 hit points can be the difference between perhaps getting that steel wall or just clinging on to life long enough to be able to win the game. Thankfully, however, the minute differences continue, and this vehicle has better view range than the standard KV-4, but absolutely horrific radio range, 440 meters, so I guess those Clan Wars players aren't going to be communicating with the rest of their team, hey? And so that about sums it up. Let's see how this behemoth performs in some gameplay. So firstly, the side scraper's dream. We're playing on Runeberg, and also we've spawned to the south. Now, why is that important? Because that means that we're going to be going around right-hand corners, so to say. We're going to be able to have the wall up on the right-hand side of our tank, and so we're going to be able to side scrape effectively. And here you can see me already practicing, I guess. This is just absolutely mental, the fact that the gun is off-center and you can just make the whole of your side of your tank almost impenetrable and also hide the weak point on top. But look, we're having to put the tank into very specific situations here to really show the capabilities of the vehicle. Don't worry, I'll have some more gameplay coming right up after this. But I'm going to be rushing straight into the combat. I really wanted to test out this tank and put it through its paces, and this was pretty much the perfect opportunity to do so. There's not even any artillery on the enemy team, so I don't have to worry about high explosive shells raining down upon me. So a bit of creative use of the front of the tank there. We wedged it in, and right away the Indian Panzer unable to go through the side of our tracks. And he's not going to be able to. There's no gun in the game that I think that could get through the side armor. All they could do is just be firing high explosive rounds at the side of the vehicle to probably quite lightly splash it. And so we're going to just keep side scraping from this position. The Indian Panzer decides he's had enough of us, so we're going to put a round through the front of the T-29. And having that 228 or 27 millimeters of penetration is more than enough to get through the front of these vehicles, that's for sure. And they're just more than happy to shoot off. And here you go. I was obviously very happy when I was streaming this live at Gamescom. As you can see, jumping up and down, just laughing. And this vehicle is one of those tanks that will be able to do this. Could this tank be the best side scraper around a right-hand corner in the game? That's a very specific title, right, guys? Oh, unable to put a shot there into the IS-3. I should have aimed slightly lower and I would have been able to hit the lower part of his hull armor, which is much weaker than I think the upper part, which does have some space protection. That absolute void of the IS-3, incredible side armor. We'll put one into him. Again, failing to penetrate him on the move. I'm just going to angle my armor here. Always keep it at about 40, 45 degrees to your opponent. Come round, hopefully bully him. He doesn't even want to shoot us. Finally, the first shell penetrates our tank. It looks like a Panther II managed to go through the quite weak side armor of the Kreslavsky. I think if I was in a standard KV-4, that Panther II wouldn't have been able to penetrate me. But back to it. Get some kind of protection on the right-hand side of your vehicle and just continue to punish. Good night, T-29. Now I want to progress in, see if we can get some more on this T-34 or the Panther II. And you know what? Maybe this didn't look like much, but I actually managed to block 2,770 damage. We've received 9 hits so far this game. The Panther II managing to go through my side armor again. I should have handled that better, and I should have kept him squished in there. But I guess all's well that ends well as he finally gets taken out. So this replay pretty much highlighted the best thing about the Kreslavsky. Probably one of the best side scrapers when you've got some kind of protection to the right-hand side of your tank. And I really can't wait to see some of the replays that this vehicle might be able to develop. One thing that I should mention, however, is because this vehicle is so slow, even though there were 5 tanks left on the enemy team, I don't get another shot in on any of them this game. And that certainly is one of the most frustrating things about playing the Kreslavsky. A lot of people will choose this tank to be able to make some credits and not just side scrape round corners, right? But this thing is just so painfully slow that eventually you get to the stage of the game where it's won and it's just clean up duty and you feel like a T-95. You might as well just go AFK. So now we're going to take it to the enemy team on Erlenberg Assault. I'm going to be pushing straight forwards as fast as I can. Well, when I say as fast as I can, up to the top speed limit of the tank of 30 kilometers an hour. I should also mention that this is very nice matchmaking, and this vehicle can indeed meet tier 10 tanks. And when you're in your +2 games, so your +2 matchmaking games, I really don't feel like it performs very well, as do pretty much all vehicles that rely on their armor to be able to perform. But when you go up 2 tiers, everyone's got higher penetration, especially on their premium rounds, and they're more than willing to use it when they see a unicorn inside a brand new tank that they've never seen. So we're just going to be able to put some rounds here into the ice, and I guess it's one of the nice things about the Kreslavsky that I hadn't really appreciated until reviewing this, and that's the 7 degrees of gun depression make it fairly efficient over ridge lines. Something that the 6 degrees that you could never manage to do with the standard KV-4, and a lot of the other tier 8 premium Soviet heavy tanks that have 5 degrees or 6 degrees of gun depression just can't do it quite like the Kreslavsky can. So I guess that's another little feature of the vehicle. Still, I'm not going to oversell it. 7 degrees isn't really that amazing. I don't really feel that you're a ridgeline warrior until you get up to 8, preferably 9, and ultimately 10 degrees of gun depression on many vehicles to be very efficient on the ridgelines. So here we have an 87, going to aim at the weak point on top of the tank, that little machine gun port. No, sorry, it's not a machine gun port. It looks like it's a viewport. I don't even know what it is. It's as if a KV-5 died in some horrible accident and the radio operator gifted the R2-D2 droid from the front of the tank onto the 87. It's absolutely horrific. If that vehicle didn't have that, it would be absolutely awesome. So just putting around there into the TVPVTU, going to see if we can finish off the KV-85, but again, I'm just going to continue to harass this poor 87. We can shoot him, he can't shoot us, that poor fellow. And that is 1,250 hit points that the 87 is never going to get back. That's for sure. A nice easy takedown there. So, we've absolutely demolished this flank, dealt with some rather good players on the enemy team, and now it's just a case of seeing what else we can get. And again, I'm going to say it, that the KV-4 Kreslavsky, in my opinion, is one of the worst cleanup tanks that I've played at tier 8. It's absolutely lovely for, should we say, pushing through those close quarters combat situations, for I guess working ridge lines with its 7 degrees. For side scraping corners, it's also fantastic. But when it has to use its mobility, its mediocre accuracy, and its mediocre aim time to be able to hunt down at the end of the game, it is thoroughly disappointing for me, and I would definitely rather be in a hell of a lot of the other tier 8 premium vehicles. And talking about premium vehicles, unlike the Chieftain T95 when that was first introduced, the Kreslavsky does make premium credits. So that is something that the Clan Wars reward players who are going to be choosing this tank do have to look forward to. So I have to admit, right now I was feeling rather greedy. The safest thing to do right now would be to cap. And if I cap, this game is pretty much 100% secure. And I'm going to do what that ISU 152 did, which is push forwards and be greedy and rather silly. So the 50-100 puts one round into us. We bounce a high explosive round for the Hellcat. We angle our armor, and then the 50-100 fails to penetrate us for this second shot, but his third one does go into the tank. But shooting at that rather large vehicle, we're not going to miss that easily. But we are being punished here. You know what? That 50-100, I think he put 3 rounds out of 6 into us, and he bounced 3 other ones. And now the Super Pershing penetrates a standard round on the Kreslavsky. See how he hits the mid-plate? That very weak point that I was talking about earlier? Looks like these guys really knew what they were doing as 3 rounds went into the mid-plate of this vehicle. They probably wouldn't know that. Should we say that it was more of a coincidence they hit that part of the tank? And then, because we over-angled our side armor for the Hellcat, he puts in that 90mm shell into the side of the tank. And maybe the KV-4 would have absorbed that shot. The Kreslavsky, with its much thinner side armor, does have to be very careful if it over-angles the tank. Nevertheless, my friends do the sensible thing, and well played to them, and capping was certainly the right thing to do here. If that Super Pershing did manage to interrupt them, it's quite likely that he would have been able to hold off for the remaining 3 minutes of the game before these tanks got to him. And so this result for the Kreslavsky was a second class medal. Would you believe it? 1082 is a second class in this tank. Looks like it's being tested by some rather strong players. But nevertheless, we got a high caliber medal for our 3485 damage done, and we also blocked 1900 with our armor before we fell due to our rather reckless plays, but we did make 88,000 credits profit, which is probably one of the reasons why you're going to be picking this tank. Nevertheless, the KV-4 Kreslavsky, I have to admit, this is one of my least favorite tanks to play in the game recently. It's slow, it's got bad DPM, its armor is just so frustrating unless you put it into those magical situations where you are side-scraping around the right-hand side of a corner. It's a gigantic target that doesn't really take artillery shells very well when they're starting to hit the upper part of its armor, and at least in my opinion you'd have to be a little bit crazy to pick the Kreslavsky over the IS-5 as a reward vehicle. But nevertheless, there's still so many interesting features about this tank that I can't wait to see some awesome replays sent to me. So all of you Clan Wars players who are being hipsters and picking the Kreslavsky, please do send me your replays. I can't wait to see them. So I'm going to finish this video by reiterating probably the most important thing that you will take from it, because let's be honest, 99% of you, including me, will never earn this tank. And so apologies to the 1% of you out there who will pick up the Kreslavsky. I'm going to highlight how to take this tank down. Number 1, unless you've got about 230mm of penetration, don't be too tempted to shoot the lower plate on this tank because it's 180mm thick. You'll do far better to shoot the mid plate of this vehicle, which is 140mm thick, and no matter how well he angles it, it is an easy penetration. Furthermore, only shoot the crown of this tank if you have about 210mm of penetration plus. And make sure you try and hit it towards the center, because if you hit it towards the outside, the angling goes up and up until the point where you're pretty much never going to go through it. Also, remember that the Kreslavsky's side armor is much thinner than that of the standard KV-4, and so if you see him over-angling, don't be afraid to shoot him in the side. But try and avoid these big tracks. They're 20mm of spaced armor. Try and hit above the tracks on the side, and you're quite likely to damage the vehicle. And also, finally, remember that because the gun is over the side of this tank, if you see him side scraping like this, just don't bother wasting your time. Unless you want to try and snap a shot to the right of the gun, and hopefully you've got about 250mm of penetration to be able to do that. If you see a Kreslavsky side scraping with a building on the other side of his tank like this, just don't waste your time. Do something else, or fire high explosive rounds at him just to annoy him a little bit. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Kreslavsky, and are you crazy enough to pick one as your Clan Wars reward tank? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.